Welcome to the inner workings of my brain. So, this information that I'm about to share with you has never been shared publicly before. I mean, now you're only getting it because you've invested in this course, and this is the first time I'm teaching anybody. So, this is the specific tools and tools for understanding that I use to help build my clients' brands, to analyze other brands, and to do my research and studying. Essentially, so knowing that you are the sage and leaning into that and being okay with that, embracing the fact that you are the sage is the first step. The second step is knowing which subtype you fall into underneath the sage, because it'll give you even more specificity, higher like granular level of understanding of what your type means and the role that you play in people's lives. I just noticed how awesome the ampersand is in this font that I'm using for the titles here. It looks like an 8. It's really a really cool design. Total side note. Okay, but before we get into the subtypes, let's talk about who this archetype is good for. So if you provide expertise or information to your customers or clients, it's a natural fit to be the sage archetype. If you encourage your customers or clients to think about tough issues that aren't cut and dry, also very good. If you're based on a new scientific breakthrough or knowledge, you often see a lot of medical related or technology related brands that fit the sage archetype because they're showing off their expertise. If your worth or your quality is supported by hard data. So instead of just following your gut or listening to your intuition, you actually have facts, figures, and statistics that prove your value. This archetype works really well for you. Also, if you want to differentiate your product or service from others who have quality or performance that's kind of questionable, like they aren't proven, you aren't sure if they're actually making an impact, this is a really good archetype for you as well. If you have an audience that values unbiased information to make their own conclusions, so I mean, ideally, our news sources would be unbiased and truthful and help us discover the truth. They're not always, but in situations like that where people want to have the facts so that they can make their own conclusions, this works really well. Also, if you operate in a hard to understand or complex industry, if there's lots of steps that goes into building your product or completing your service, this archetype also works really, really well. Okay, so let's dive into these subtypes. I actually identified 4. Most of the other archetypes only have 3, but you have one more, which is, I think, beneficial because you get to see with even more specificity what one that you are. By the way, I completed these trainings, just total personal side note here for a hot second. I completed these trainings in alphabetical order. So you are the last one. So you are getting the benefit of all of the other archetypes in my delivery of this information. So I hope you appreciate the teaching style and the context that I give because I've had lots of practice. All right, let's get to it. So the mediator or the judge is an important role that a sage archetype can play. So the cultural context that you can ask yourself is who or what is right, and how can you decide that? Who needs help deciding who or what is right? You need to be an unbiased medium, similar to a lawyer or a judge or a mediator between two like highly emotional or complex subjects, ideas, or people. So you are the equal and balanced person that people turn to when they need help deciding. You can also show up as the student, mentor, or teacher. So there's a transfer of information. There's the theme of bringing up the next generation, teaching what we know to pass it along, passing the torch. There's also a strong theme of sharing knowledge between an older wise person and a young apprentice or student. So you could adopt this model, this subtype for your brand. And the cultural context, the question to ask here is who can you teach? And related, what can you teach? What knowledge can you impart on people that will benefit their lives? The next subtype that you may fall under is the engineer. So this shows up in highly skilled, especially certified professions, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. You can be the engineer subtype even if you don't have anything to do with the hard science. But that is a effective example of this. So you are like an architect or a doctor, highly skilled, detailed brain work that requires a lot of analysis, a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge to produce the end result. You're the master of your trade. Cultural context is what do you know that benefits others? And on what do you know on like an expert level? It's not just a simple student mentor teacher relationship. Like, what are you certified in? What have you provided like proven results in? The next subtype is the analyst. And you see this show up in the world as like the detective, the decoder, a translator, and you're helping other people understand the truth. So the question to ask if you are this subtype is what complex issues need to be analyzed? Where is there a lot of data that could benefit the world or benefit people if it only made sense to them? You see this a lot in the business teaching, business education arena where people take the ideas that have been written about perhaps from like Stanford or Harvard Business School that are like these really complex case studies or psychological studies, and then the analyst might decode those for the average person to help them understand. So do some reflection in the guidebook. There's a space for this to ask yourself, what subtype do you fall under, and how does that affect how you explain what you do, how you interact with your clients or customers, and the value that they see in you. Another way to add specificity to your archetype is to think about the evolution. Now, this comes directly from the book by Carol S. Pearson. I have it linked in this section if you want to reference it. Level 1 is the search for quote unquote the truth and for objectivity. Level 2 is skepticism, awareness that there are multiple truths and that truth is complex. So you see all truth is relative and you accept some level of subjectivity as part of the human condition. Level 3 is a deep sense of wisdom. You experience and have knowledge of some ultimate or universal truths. So none of these are better than the others, especially for brands. So identify which one you are at and perhaps which one your clients want from you. Are they searching for the truth, or are they searching for some ultimate universal truth that is connected to something larger than themselves?